Hi, I'm Ken Kirschenbaum, again, still here. Thanks for joining us. Today, I'm very pleased today to introduce you to David Smith. He's the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development of COPS Monitoring. So COPS Monitoring, as you're going to find out in a few minutes, is the largest wholesale central station in the United States. And I can tell you that being the leader of the pack keeps it a lot of pressure on a central station, or it keeps a lot of pressure on anyone who's number one. I like to say that when you're the lead sled dog, unless you're the lead sled dog, the view never changes. So there's a constant new view that the leader of that pack has to take, and COPS needs to stay on its toes, and it does, and it delivers. And right now, I'm very happy to introduce David and turn this presentation over to him. As in the other webinars, if you've attended them, please save your questions till the end. I'll read them to David. We're going to have plenty of time for questions. I've asked David to limit this to around 20 minutes. He certainly can go over or not spend 20 minutes. It's up to him. So David, I'm getting ready to make you a presenter.
Okay.
And you should now take control of the screen, and you're on your own for 20 minutes.
Okay. So I can tell you that I'm going to use every bit of 20 minutes, if not more. I'll try to move through the information quickly, hopefully not too quick. If I do move too fast, kind of reel it back in, or we can ask questions later. I appreciate the kind words and appreciate the opportunity to spend today with some dealers explaining why I think that you should consider COPS monitoring for your professional monitoring needs. But before I get started, I thought that it might be, because I'm not sure anybody really knows me in the industry, I thought it might be helpful to tell you a little bit of information about me. Again, I'm the VP of Marketing and Business Development at COPS. I've been here since 2008 for the last 12 years. I started my first job in monitoring in 1989 at a small company called Logiplex of Florida in Fort Lauderdale. In 1992, Logiplex was acquired by Masada Security. And then in 1994, built a 50,000 square foot UL listed monitoring center in Birmingham, Alabama, and we moved the operations from Fort Lauderdale to Birmingham. In 1997, Masada was acquired by SecurityLink by Ameritech, and in 98, I was contacted by SAI to return to South Florida and run their monitoring operations in Pompano Beach. And in the tenure, by the end of the 10 years with SAI, SAI had amassed 16 different central stations throughout the country. During that time, we consolidated those down into 6 monitoring centers. And then after that, we consolidated them to 2 monitoring centers, one in Pompano Beach and one in Arlington Heights. And I was the director of operations with both of those. In 2008, SAI, around that time, SAI started their retail monitoring and divested their wholesale monitoring operations to COPS. And that's when I joined COPS in 2008. So why I thought that might be important is in my first 20 years before joining COPS, I had direct involvement with a lot of central stations. I also worked closely with a lot more through software users groups, monitoring platform users groups, and industry associations. I had experience with both wholesale and retail, both at the same time and both separately. And when you have the opportunity and the privilege actually to build, manage, go through UL compliances, consolidate, participate in acquisitions, doing due diligence, you get significant exposure to a lot of things like technology and levels of redundancy and hiring and training methods, policies, procedures, so on and so forth. I also got experience with or exposure to a lot of monitoring platforms. So after 20 years, I thought I really had a well-rounded experience, and then I joined COPS, and quite honestly, I was really blown away how they take a lot of things to the next level. So during that, I also learned things that aren't necessarily differentiators in monitoring companies. For instance, a lot of monitoring companies, if not most, have listings and certifications. We monitor all types of alarms. We have a monitoring footprint. We can monitor in all 50 states if we're licensed to do so. There's no limitations there. We can accept all types of signal formats from all major manufacturers over a lot of different signal paths. There's various levels of redundancy, which I'll talk a little bit about here. We all have a variety of dealer services to help our dealers. Members of associations, our monitoring platforms can integrate with a number of things, and we have dealer programs to help our dealers grow. But I don't call these differentiators because, well, they'd have to be different actually to be differentiators, and there might be small differences, but I don't really see that there are major differences between monitoring centers. I actually kind of call these the price of admission or the cost of doing business to do monitoring at a high level for dealers. So what does differentiate is, I think, is that COPS monitoring is 100% wholesale. 100% of the accounts that we monitor are for dealers. We don't own any accounts. We don't do any sales, installation, or service of any accounts. We're not competing with our dealers in any way for any customers or revenue. 100% of our resources are focused on wholesale monitoring and supporting our dealers, which really makes our success dependent on our dealer success. The other thing is the extensive experience that COPS has, 42 years of providing only professional wholesale alarm monitoring, and a steadfast commitment to grow while it was the norm, as I showed you in my experience, all of the consolidations and acquisitions. COPS grew while other companies consolidated. And a really great cultivated leadership, meaning that our president is still, or our founder is still the president of our company, and which means that our core values remain intact and have stood the test of time and continue to guide us today. Our current executive staff also has a lot of experience in professional monitoring, but they're guided by our founders to make sure that our core values and the things that made us and our dealers successful remain intact. And we're already grooming the next level of our executive team today, and we don't have any kind of exit plan, which means that we're going to be around for a while. So how this helps our dealers? First, we share our knowledge, both with our dealers to help them become more successful, and with the industry by contributing to industry standards, which helps the industry as a whole. We're trusted by 3,500 alarm companies to monitor over 3 million accounts. And, I think this is important because it requires us to have a significant level of expertise. It really requires to have our stuff together and our systems in place to be able to monitor, to be able to serve so many different types of dealers and monitor so many different types of accounts. The other benefit is that these efficiencies benefit all of our dealers. There's no way to purchase priority service. You can't buy better response times. In fact, trying to do so would hurt the entire company. Anytime that we try to segment the business and have groups of accounts that are monitored different, the entire company would suffer. So all of our dealers share in the reliability that we have in our infrastructure. And because the systems are so strong, it would take a major event to really significantly degrade service levels. Our size and strength gives us the ability to regularly invest in our infrastructure and our technology. Over the past few years, you can see there that we've done, we average about $150,000 a month. You can see over the past several years, we've spent millions on our infrastructure, our technology, our firewalls, generators, and massive generators in New Jersey that we just got upgrades to our other sites, UPSs, 6 new phone switches at all of our sites. We just upgraded our hard drives from traditional spinning hard drives to state-of-the-art solid state drives, which really improves data and throughput. and other critical structure. And actually, just not too long ago, we spent $500,000 buying laptops and other infrastructure to support our employees who are working or have been working through COVID. We spent a lot of time in research preparing for, or time and expense preparing for our future together as well. We spend money on our people. We have several ongoing programs to motivate our employees, and I'll share some of those, a little bit about those in a little bit. And we recently gave our entire hourly employee workforce a 20% raise, which equates to about $4 million a year. And still, we're able to offer our services at competitive prices. The next thing is technology. COPS is the only, that I know of, is the only professional monitoring, wholesale monitoring company with 100% exclusive monitoring platform, dealer access, and API. It's supported by a large team of in-house programmers. Why this is important. So it was built from the ground up to serve our dealers and for wholesale monitoring. It wasn't built to serve many monitoring companies who use it in many different ways. It was built for us, for our customer base. So it's 100% supported in-house. We don't have to rely on outside support to upgrade or troubleshoot or work on or improve our systems. It's all done in-house. It gives us the ability to quickly update our systems if we want to, without having to go through any approval process, without having to pay a third party. And it also gives us the ability to make decisions and improve our systems without having to basically purchase them from our software vendor. And I don't know if this is still prevalent, but I can tell you back in my experience, if we wanted an enhancement, something to make our, run our business better or serve our dealers better, we'd go to the software vendor and we'd get a quote between $5,000 and $10,000 to do the enhancement. We'd get the great feature, and then somewhere down the line, it was offered to the other monitoring centers using the platform for free in a general release. So that doesn't happen with us. The time and the resources that we spend on our system go to the benefit of our company and to the benefit of our dealers. The other thing is, I like to call this trust but verify. We think we have strong networks and secure networks, and we observe confidentiality of subscriber data, and that we're not vulnerable to cyber attacks. But instead of just thinking it, we went out and made sure. So we contracted with companies to help us ensure that our systems are strong. Starting with a step in the right direction was getting our SOC 2 certification. SOC 2 basically is an audit process that looks at all of your procedures and your policies and your security and your confidentiality and all of that, and makes sure that they adhere to high standards. And then a SOC 2, the type 2 is they come back later and they make sure that these systems and processes are still in place and that we're still able to do this over time. With cybersecurity, we contract regularly with a company called RiskSense, who will basically do cyber attacks on our system to make sure that it's secure. So they will do what they call penetration tests, and they developed a number of tools that mimic what hackers would use to try to penetrate our system. Our network, one of the $1 million investments that we made is in Cisco Meraki hardware. Also helps us from cyber attacks and malware and things like that. And one of the neat things about Cisco Meraki is that it will auto load share calls and data between sites and can redirect calls and data to our different sites as the network sees fit. As a matter of fact, it can actually take a call that's in process and redirect it to another site without dropping the call. So that helps us with the automatic load sharing between sites. And then again, one of the other investments that we made was in JBase. JBase is a modern day leading database system and essentially an operating system. And what that does is it speeds not only data throughput, it speeds our ability to bring new customizations to market, and it opens the door to other programming languages and other snap-ins and modules that we can connect to to our database and our dealer access. Excuse me 1 minute. So redundancy, we talk about redundancy. There's, I think everybody can agree that monitoring center today needs redundancy. I mean, UL listing is a great minimum standard. It makes sure that we have the receiving capabilities, backup power, critical infrastructure backup on site. But until recently, it didn't really address the loss of an entire site. So, and you know, if you lose an entire site, you're basically out of business because you can't monitor alarms, you can't answer telephone calls, and it essentially puts a business, an outage would put a monitoring company and perhaps your company out of business. But when I talk about like outages and losing a site, it doesn't necessarily mean that it takes a catastrophe. What it usually means, at least for us in our experience, is that some local condition that's happening near one of your monitoring centers that does two things. It increases alarm traffic and it complicates the ability to staff. And those two things together significantly affect response times. If your alarm number of alarms go up and your number of staffing goes down, you could have response times into the minutes when that happens. And some of the things that affect us are, snowstorms or severe weather with flooding, fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, digging construction. A backhoe could dig up your fiber and disable the central station. Public health, it's not just COVID, it could be the flu or anything else that could make its way into your monitoring center and disable your ability to staff. And the thing is, there's really no place that you could put a monitoring center that isn't immune to all of these things. So, so that's basically what I mean when we lose a site, and so that's what we need to consider. So after 9/11, we started thinking about we should have a second central station because we were large enough in New Jersey. We needed to consider that we had some business continuity. So in 2002, we did some research on where we wanted to build one. In 2003, we actually built it. And in 2004, we opened Arizona. And it was a big improvement over just one site because what it essentially did was gave us two places to send our signals and calls. So if they couldn't be received in New Jersey, they could be received in Arizona and vice versa. So it solved a lot of technical issues. But what we realized is that it kind of caused an issue with staffing. Because now we had some of our staffing in New Jersey and some of our staffing in New Jersey, in Arizona. So if we were to lose one of the two sites, that means that we would have 50% or a part of our staff trying to handle 100% of our traffic. And remember what I said, when you lose a site, you usually increase alarm traffic. So then you could have half of your staff trying to handle 110% of your alarm traffic. And that's if the two sites are equally staffed. If you're 70-30 or 60-40, the problem only gets worse if you lose the bigger site. So in 2006, COPS acquired a monitoring company in Florida, and instead of consolidating it, which was the norm to do at the time, they configured, and I say they because I feel like I'm the new kid on the block still. We configured the three sites to work together and create load sharing. So all of the signals, all of the calls, all of the alarms were handled by all three sites all at the same time. So a signal could be handled in Arizona, Florida, or New Jersey, and it didn't matter. So what happened there was if something happened at one of our sites, and we now had two sites that could be overstaffed, or the staffing could be adjusted to compensate for response times. In 2010, that was put to the test. We had a nor'easter hit our New Jersey facility, our largest facility by far with the most staffing. We were able to plan for that, adjust days off, adjust break schedules, things like that at Arizona and Florida. And over the 5 days, we were able to reduce our response times, our 2009 whole year annual response time for those 5 days. The problem with that is by operating three sites it's not sustainable. You've got people working overtime, you've got adjusted schedules, and at some point in time, people are going to burn out. You can't work people at 110% all the time, or sooner or later you're going to have a service degradation. So from that time, we opened Tennessee, Texas, and Maryland with a total of 6 sites. And again, they all are on the same monitoring platform. They're all load sharing. The signals all go to all sites at the same time. So if we were to lose one site, all of the other sites can be, the staffing at other sites can be adjusted to compensate. And it's easier. The more centers that we have, the easier it becomes to compensate for the loss of the single site. In fact, we think we can lose 2 without significant lasting impact to our monitoring, and we think that we could plan for 3 and actually close 3 sites and still monitor for a time. Operating so many sites gives us the ability to close them when we need to. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew basically had a direct hit on our South Florida monitoring center. It was a pretty big storm. And in preparation, instead of riding it out and hunkering down in the monitoring center, we closed it. We sent everybody home, let them board up their houses, get their supplies, be with their families, and do what's important to them rather than being in the monitoring center. And still, with 100 employees off for a number of days, we still were able to reduce our response times. It happens even when we can't plan for it. And earlier this year, we had a tornado that went within a mile of our Tennessee monitoring center. And it completely wiped out all communications and data and power and everything to our Nashville central station. And service levels weren't affected at all. And it took. I think some of our communications came back relatively quickly, but it took several days for them to fully restore communications. And still, our response times and our service levels were unaffected. Helps to protect from things, as I mentioned earlier, about flu and COVID. And our workforce isn't in one office; it's distributed in six different states. So if something nasty did make it into our office, it's not going to wipe out our entire staff. And as I mentioned, we could close the site if we need to for cleaning or anything like that. So there's more benefits to offering to having 6 physical locations, both to us and to our dealers. One is that we have greater industry awareness in our local areas. We can connect better with our dealers. We do in-person training at all of our sites and surrounding area, which will resume again when things return to some semblance of normalcy. We have a greater impact on our communities. We offer stable employment, great benefits. We do charitable events around each one of our sites. The other thing is we have 750 plus employees, but we're not operating in a mega center. We don't have hundreds of employees in in a site. New Jersey has more than the others, but by operating smaller sites, we're able to maintain small group cohesiveness that's usually associated with companies that are much smaller than us. So, and then the other thing is we get to attract the best talent, not just in one job market, but across 6 different geographical locations and just 6 different job markets. Which brings me to what I think is our greatest asset at Cobbs. Every advantage, everything that I talked about, the 6 central stations, our technology, load sharing, response times, all are designed to do one thing, is to put the right person on the phone to help your customer when they need it most. In fact, when a customer asks for professional monitoring, that's really what they're asking for, is a connection to a real live person that cares about them. If they didn't want that, they install it themselves and monitor it themselves. So the fact that they want professional monitoring offered through your company means they want somebody looking out for them. And after the installation, our dispatchers are probably the people that talk to your customers most, like I said, after the installation. They become the voice of your company. They contribute to your reputation. They can also increase referral sales by talking to the customer's contacts. So that means that finding the right employees is important, but it's difficult because we don't think that the right employees can be measured on a resume or an application by their education or experience. it really comes down to personality, and they have to have like the right blend of a sense of duty and empathy and professionalism and those types of things. And I mean, I don't know that you could go to school to learn empathy, or learn a sense of duty, or learn to be caring over the phone sitting in a call center somewhere. These are natural talents that are in these people that are the people that we select to be a cops dispatcher. It's our job to recognize and then cultivate. So the other thing is, what I learned is that skills aren't necessarily transferable. You can't go into a place and get good customer service by somebody and then offer them a job in your call center and expect them to do great, because in-person customer service is not the same skill as over the phone and call center customer service. It's a completely different skill set. And putting the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time is going to hurt your business and ours. It ends up creating high turnover because you're letting people go all of the time, which means that you have an inexperienced workforce, which how it can impact you is that you're going to have lower customer satisfaction and higher attrition rates. But I'm probably telling you something that you already know. So how do we do it? So there's actually a science behind finding the right people. It's called industrial psychology. Industrial psychology and psychologists are trained in finding the right people for the right jobs is the simplest way to put that. So all of our applicants are screened with tests designed for us by an industrial psychologist to identify the traits that I mentioned to you and others that we've identified over the 42 years of doing this are common in people that tend to excel through dispatching and then into other positions in our company. So by placing the right people in the right jobs, they're happy, they produce great service, which means that you're happy because you're getting a great service, and your customers are happy, lowering attrition and perhaps increasing referrals. So then after we spend a lot of time interviewing, a lot of time, because not everybody fits the I don't want to say mold, but the criteria that we're looking for in a dispatcher. So we do a lot of hiring. That's another thing that the 6 sites do for us, is that we're able to do a lot of hiring, a lot of interviewing. The 6 monitoring centers allow us to do interviewing in all of our sites, and it doesn't matter where we hire somebody because they're all part of the same network. So then after we do hire somebody, they begin their training, which is a lot of classroom training, and then followed by a lot of tandem where they sit with somebody to learn dispatching. And then they enter our gradation program. Yeah, a lot of the gradation program is proprietary, and can't tell you a lot about it, but I can tell you it is the most rigorous training and motivation system that I have ever seen. There's constant contact with the employees, constant feedback, constant requirements, constant moving forward, constant recognition. So again, it speaks to the psychology of the employees to keep them moving forward and motivated. And if they don't, simply put, they don't work here. So if they can't make it through, it's a constant up or out. There's 6 levels to the gradation program. And if they can't make it through the 6 and continue to move forward, they just don't work here, which means that really only the best employees are able to serve our dealers and their customers. So what do you do after you find the best employees and train the heck out of them, train them? You reward the heck out of them, and you protect the culture that makes it all possible. So COPS has a VP of quality and culture. I don't know of many companies that actually have that. So we have a VP of quality and culture to make sure that those values that we've lived by and worked for the last 42 years continue. So we also incentivize them. We throw great parties for them around the holidays. We invite them on things that we call Club 6, which is, I mentioned, there's 6 levels of the gradation. When they reach Club 6, they get to go to trips that might be dinner and a show. And I don't mean, I mean, these are like 5-star events and 5-star restaurants. managers get to go on retreat. We've done Aruba, and we've done Disney trips, we've done other exotic locations. But when they do the trips, two things happen. One, there's not on the Club 6. On the Club 6, the Club 6 employees get to take somebody with them, and they just get to enjoy a night. And the reason that we allow them to invite a guest is, one, they put a lot of time into their job, so we want to be able to give back to the people that matter to them. Second is, at some point in time during the event, the guest will look over at the employee and say, "Wow, my company doesn't do this for us." And it's just another level of motivation that we're not able to give to the employees. It's given to them through their loved ones and the people that matter to them. The management retreats, they're great locations, but there's also an element of business and training involved. Like, we might do case studies or things like that, but they're getting an education as well when they go to the trips. And I think what we're doing is working. We promote people within. There's a lot of depth on the bench, I would say. 96% of our management started in entry-level position. We've got several employees with decades of experience, and which means that our employees have a really deep, thorough understanding about what we do and how to serve our customers. And many of them are fortunate to be recognized by people to watch, like the 20 under 40s and 40 under 40s. And we know that happy and competent employees provide a pleasant user experience and improve customer satisfaction. And they also cultivate loyalty to your company. And that's it. So those are the 5 pillars, if you will, that I mentioned, that I think that differentiate COPS, and I think why you might want to consider us for your professional monitoring. And we'll see if we have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks for a great presentation, David. Everyone found out all the secrets about COPS, how it got to be #1, and through a lot of hard work and planning, and how it stays #1. And that's not through luck, it's also through hard work and planning. So let's get to a few questions. Well, this must have been during your presentation. Was the raise due to minimum wage increases that were required?
No, it wasn't. We knew that there was some pressure in some areas for minimum wage, but we thought that we would kind of just get out ahead of that and do a proactive increase.
Did COPS have a phone line cut a year ago or so? The dealer is saying that he had this happen to him.
I'm not aware of that.
I mean, a dealer's a phone line cut certainly wouldn't be a Central Station's fault. It would be something external to the Central Station, right?
It could be, especially if it's a dealer. There's so many people, there are not so many, but there are multiple people that will touch or be involved in a phone line. So there's a lot of variables. We don't know. I actually don't know about the situation.
Oh, so they're saying, so this dealer is saying, why did the line issue affect me if you can load share on real time? So apparently there was a breakdown in a communication line before it hit the communication network, I would imagine, and reached COPS system.
I think that's a possibility, but I really don't know the details about it. If this person wants to contact me, my contact information is there. I can certainly look into it and get a more precise answer about what happened. But you're right. I mean, before the call makes it to us, we really don't have any control over some of that the communication path.
Right. I mean, if you pick a location anywhere in the country, it's got to go through some network before it reaches the COPS network.
Correct.
So a breakdown before it hits the COPS network obviously would not be received by COPS. So what you're saying is that once it's received by the COPS network, it's received in all 6 Central Stations. That's
right. So basically, yeah. So if a call reaches us, and let's say it's an alarm that needs to reach a receiver, If it can't reach a receiver, which means it's already made it to our facility. If it can't reach a receiver, our internal systems will redirect that to another site. If it can't get to us in the first place,
That would be that's the exact same problem that any dealer faces, a communication failure before it reaches the central station. And that's one of the reasons that central stations can't be responsible for signals. And it's one of the reasons that alarm dealers aren't responsible for signals. The industry still relies on communication pathways that are owned and controlled by others. And the industry will never own all of these pathways, other than the AES radios, okay? But even the AES radios still depend on, I think they still depend on some external communication pathway. Was the Arizona station built from the ground up like New Jersey, while the other locations were acquisitions?
So let's see, New Jersey was built from the ground up, Arizona was built, Florida was an acquisition. So where are we? Tennessee was built, Texas was built, and Maryland was an acquisition.
Okay. Do you charge dealers for their phone lines?
To be honest, I don't know.
Does COPS encourage dealers to have their own phone lines, or how would that work?
Well, I mean, we leave that up to them. I think that from my perspective, it would be prudent to have your own phone lines. You know, in this day and age, we're kind of moving away from phone lines. So a lot of the stuff is IP or cellular, so we're not going to have the same constraints of having dial-up.
Well, I think the real issue comes down to what happens when a dealer wants to leave and get their accounts out of COPS and into somewhere else. How does that process work out for the dealer typically?
Well, we don't have any dealers that ever want to leave, right?
Okay.
No, and there's a process. Our tech team will help that. Once the contract is expired, you want to go, we're not going to hold anybody hostage who wants to go someplace else.
But how is it? How are they? How if their accounts are commingled on all these other lines maintained by COPS, they wouldn't be able to get their. I assume any dealer with any sizable amount of accounts is going to come to COPS and say, I want to make sure I'm on segregated lines.
Correct.
Okay, and that's just something that you need to do. Okay.
Yeah. So, but dealers coming to us who want to swing their lines are already on their own lines, and then dealers who are putting accounts online one at a time now, a lot of them are putting on IP, cellular, things like that. So it may not have the same limitations and restrictions and difficulties moving.
How does if a communication is coming in through IP or cellular, how does an alarm company move accounts as opposed to a phone line? Do you know how that works?
Yeah, I basically, I mean, that's a little bit beyond my level of expertise these days, but I believe that because the signals go through the service provider like AlarmNet or like someone like that AlarmNet can repoint those to other companies. I'm sure other, AlarmNet just goes off the top of my head, but I'm sure other IP and wireless providers can do the same thing.
So when we talk about IP communication coming in to a central station, are we almost always talking about the signal going through what I call a third-party vendor, like AlarmNet, for example, or Alarm.com?
To varying degrees, yeah. Like some panels that are IP will communicate directly with our IP receiver, but I think I don't think many things these days, like we had way in the past with direct dialers and things like that. I don't think anything is physically directly connected to us. It always goes through some kind of provider. Okay. Now, whether it goes through their NOC or whether it goes through their
right. So if it's going through Alarm.com, for example, the dealer would call alarm.com and say, I want you to send the signal here instead of there, and that's how that would work, right?
Correct. Yeah.
You're not just if it's going through the internet, it's not, or cellular, you would also contact the cellular service.
Right.
Are you M2M compatible? I'm not sure what is that, by the way.
We offer M2M. Yeah.
What is M2M? Do you know?
M2M is a small cellular dialer that universal dialer that works. We do offer M2M. As a matter of fact, if you get them through SS and SI, which is a small distributor that we work with, I think they're offering a year free monitoring on the cellular service.
Please describe your marketing, business development, and support available to dealers.
So we contract with other companies. We actually refer you to other companies. SS and SI, that distributor, also does some marketing. They'll build websites. They'll build cut sheets, flyers. They'll do social marketing for you. I know Jake over at SS and SI is really big on Facebook ads and things like that. So they kind of handhold you through that whole thing. We also work with the Stevens Group. They do some marketing as well, but we tend to just work with the companies that are going to do the best job for you rather than trying to do monitoring and marketing as well. But we definitely can get you the help if you need it.
You left out your most important occasional referral, David, and that's the K&K for contracts, okay?
They were talking about marketing, but okay.
Oh, okay. Well, business development. You can't have business development without a K&K contract, that's for sure. Here's one of your dealers.
Well, just to back up on that, whoever asked that question, just go ahead and contact me, and we'll talk about what you're looking for, and I'll do the best I can to help.
Well, here's a specific question from one of your dealers. Where can I find incident uptime reports for your services?
I would start by contacting our dealer support department and describe exactly what you're looking for, and they should be able to help you, actually.
Does COPS maintain a portal for its dealers to go to?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and what about subscriber or customer data input? Is that done by the dealer or by COPS employees?
Both. It's done by the dealer through that portal or by COPS employees.
So, but a dealer can do it.
Sure. Yeah.
And if they're coming from another central station, is it typically imported? Can you import it somehow? All the data from a prior central station's records, assuming they give it to you electronically?
Yes, we could do that. We have a whole team that works on that.
Okay. Does COPS have voice recording that the dealer can listen to when there's a customer complaint? In other words, our operators or even customer support recorded, and can a dealer get to that recording?
Yeah, all monitoring center calls are recorded. All dealer support calls are recorded. So just ask the dealer support.
You let the dealers hear it?
Sure. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you think that you might be protective over that, but I'll tell you that exonerates us more times than not. You get a customer who is upset about something happened, the cops were called on them, no pun intended, but they were dispatched on, and something happens, and they say, oh, the dispatcher was rude, or they didn't say the right things, or I gave the right password or not. We're not trying to hide anything. The information is right there, and more times than not, it shows that it shows what actually happened. So,
do dealers have to use COPS monitoring contracts? Do you charge if there's not one on file? Well, first, do they have to use a COPS monitoring contract?
No, they don't. There's an approval process. If you want to use one of yours, Ken, I'm sure it's probably already approved. We just need to go through the approval process, know that we have it on file, and then basically you understand that you need to get those subscriber agreements. If you don't, go through that process, then yes, we do require an agreement from cops. And yes, it is a hard copy, and yes, we do need it on file. And there is a charge if there isn't, but I recommend going through the approval process.
So it certainly is wise, if not essential, that central stations require dealers to get contracts with their customers. And dealers should know no security, fire, alarm services without a contract. The central stations know it, and the dealers need to know it. The central stations and the insurance companies insuring the alarm industry rely on dealers to have proper contracts in place. You have to get that done and be very careful about it. What is your pricing structure? I guess what's the base price? I guess he's looking for. Maybe some other.
That's a difficult question to answer, and I was afraid you're going to answer that, because pricing really comes down to volume of accounts and activity of workload. So I just recommend, if you want to contact me, I can get you in touch with our account executive assigned to your state, and just can kind of understand how many accounts you have, what kind of activity, what other kind of other signals that you're handling, and then we'll just build what I know will be a competitive pricing bid.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, a dealer with 50 accounts couldn't expect to call cops and can expect to get what, $4, $5, $1? What's he looking at?
Well, a dealer with 50 accounts is not going to get $1 monitoring.
No, right. Is he going to get $4 monitoring?
He could get $4 monitoring if, again, I'm not trying to be evasive here. It's just I don't want to put a price on something. It's like me asking you how much to be my attorney. Well, you say, well, for what?
I get that every day, all day.
Okay. There's not a price on it. It's really a conversation. Again, I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm just trying to, I don't want to throw a number out there that, hey, excites somebody or put somebody off. But I can definitely tell you that we'll work with you to get a pricing that is
clearly the pricing is competitive.
Yes.
More than competitive. You don't grow to #1 without being more than competitive. Okay. Is cops New York? We always get this one. New York City Fire Department approved? I don't think so. No. And UL 2050 approved?
You know what's funny about that is UL 2050 tells us that we're not allowed to advertise if we're UL 2050, but I can tell you that we can get you UL 2050 monitoring if you need it.
What does it mean to be UL 2050 monitoring?
UL 2050 covers government facilities. And SCIF facilities and things like that. So they technically tell us you're not allowed to advertise it, but if you can't advertise it, so it comes down to if a dealer needs it, we can do it for them.
So if a dealer's lucky enough to get the Pentagon, it's going to have to go to a wholesale central station that's UL 2050 approved?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. All right. Can cops issue a UL certificate for its dealers?
We can issue a monitoring certificate, but but that's it. We can issue the certificate that's required to show that it's monitored by a UL central station. Not the certificate that's required by an inspection of the site.
Okay, so you're not issuing a mercantile UL central station certificates. That generally is required in order to establish a response, a guard service response to a signal. Okay, it's when you're in those are for inner city type operations, like New York City, for example. There's a question. I'm not sure what the question is. It says Comcast /SimpliSafe with a question mark. Do you monitor either of those operations? If you're willing, if you want to say so, or I'm not sure what the question is.
You know, if we did, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. Just like we don't talk about any dealers that we monitor for sense of confidentiality and NDAs. And we
That's
don't.
good. That's a good response.
Honestly, if a dealer chooses to say they monitor with us, that's fine. But we can't discuss that.
Does COPS have text notification?
We do, yes.
So a customer gets a signal comes from the customer's house, they get a text message. And can they interact on that text message? Can they respond on that text message?
Well, they can. We launched last year a service called My Alarm Chat, and we launched it to our API dealers, the larger dealers that are connected to us through API, to kind of put it through the ringer. So it was launched, and it basically sends a text message to everybody that's enrolled in it. It creates a virtual chat room. They can talk about the security, let them know that it was a false alarm. They can escalate the alarm, or they can cancel it. And through that beta, we had a number of enhancements that we're going to incorporate before we roll it out again. I actually don't have a timeline on that.
Okay. Do you have end user portals, and do you charge for that? So now we're talking about the customer being able to access a portal.
We do. We have subscriber access, is what we call it. It can come in two flavors. One is Empower branded, our brand. It's free to all dealers that they can give to their customers to view account data and their history. And then there's a private labeled one that is branded with the dealer's brand. So basically, it can be accessed from their website, the desktop version. It'll be branded with their logo and color scheme that matches their website, and a mobile access as well, which is also branded with their logo.
Here's a question from a dealer that needs to attend more of my webinars. Do you offer help with maintenance contracts on top of monitoring contracts that dealers can offer to customers? Well, Mr. Dealer, COPS is not a lawyer, and they don't offer contracts and shouldn't. And any central station that does wouldn't be on the alarm exchange, I can assure you of that. And there's no such thing as maintenance contracts in the alarm industry. I've tried to instill that in dealers for a long time now. They're called service contracts, service plans, or service on a per call basis. So dealer, you can call me, not David, for help with your contracts, okay? COPS does help you, by the way. They tell you that you need contracts. That's how they help you. Okay, since you're, okay, they're hammering you on not talking about, talking about pricing. But this question is, do you fine dealers, penalize them for not sending in copies of the subscriber contracts, the customer contracts?
Yep, there's a fee involved with that, which I mentioned before. You know, it's important for us to have that subscriber contract. So if you don't have an approved subscriber contract on it, we're going to send you ours that sets up basic contractual language between us and the customer. And if we don't have it on file,
and let me ask you this, so COPS does want the subscriber contract sent to it. COPS has a copy of the subscriber contract, correct?
If they do not have an approved version like your contract on file with us, that we know their customers are getting.
But how, if you're not requiring to see the contract that's been signed by the customer, you don't really know whether there's been alterations made or modifications made, or whether the customer actually signed the contract at all. So the answer is, and so if a dealer comes to COPS and says, we use Kirschenbaum contracts, that's what we use. So COPS then says, fine, you're approved, we're going to monitor you. But you don't have to send us a copy of each contract when you sign up a subscriber. That's COPS procedure and practice, and it is consistent, I think, with probably all the other central stations. And how do I know that? Because when I represent dealers or central stations in contract negotiations between them, I like to put in a provision that says the dealer is going to send the central station a copy of the subscriber contract in each case. And I get resistance from both the central station and the dealer. Now, we don't want to go through that. So, fine. So that's the answer to that. So you would fine a dealer for not sending in a contract if under what circumstance? If you find out that they don't have one?
If they don't have an approved contract, and the approval process is also basically an agreement that they're going to get the Kirschenbaum contract, or their approved contract, that all of their customers are going to sign it, that it's not going to be altered, that you're going to keep it on file, you know, things like that. If we don't go through that process and we don't have this understanding and relation, you're gonna have to use our subscriber contract, which is really a contract with us and the subscriber.
Right.
And if we don't get that, it's important. I mean, we don't want to monitor customers that we don't have a contract with. So
no, okay. So you're referring to what I call the three-party contract. So so COPS also consistent with the central station good practices, best practices. If it knows the dealer is not using an approved contract or any contract, the central station is going to require that this, what I call the three-party contract, which is the central station's monitoring contract, to be signed and delivered to the central station in order to provide the monitoring service. And that is the only way it should be. Okay. We're getting confirmation on security government facilities. For 2050, DOD approved. And some people are speculating what some of your largest customers can get. Can we get a screen printout on presentation? All these webinars are recorded and will be available on the Kirschenbaum website, and where it'll stay, so you'll be able to get it. What is API dealer?
So API dealer is an application programming interface, and it basically means that they connect to us directly through our infrastructure, so to speak, our Empower infrastructure. So they don't use alarm receivers. Their systems connect directly to our systems, and they're usually dealers of fairly significant size.
Okay. Does COPS charge dealers for signal activity over some base for the monitoring fee?
We may, depending on your agreement.
Okay.
And that's why I said about pricing. I mean, we could set very low pricing for you, but then there's going to be some limits on that pricing. And if those limits are exceeded, there's going to be what I would think is a nominal charge on that. Or we could do your pricing with more signals and higher activity built in. You have a higher monthly fee, and then lower, if any, activity fees.
Right. So now here's a question that statement really, and it's a wrong statement. So listen carefully. What's being lost in this discussion is that COPS requires each and every contract to be sent to them for each customer, and that's not true. That's only if COPS is requiring the dealer to get a COPS monitoring contract signed, which it doesn't do. It will not require that if a dealer has a proper contract.
Correct.
If the dealer doesn't have a proper contract, I don't even know why they're in business. So,
well, it means that we're monitoring the customer without a contract.
right.
And the incentive to get us the contract, we're going to monitor for that added extra liability. There's a fee for not sending our agreement in.
Right.
And then once our agreement is sent in, there is no contract fee.
Do you use an IVR? I'm not sure I don't know what that is.
We do. We use IVR, and recently we actually just recently rolled it out during COVID for low priority alarms. I don't even call them alarms. Low priority events, AC power failure, low battery, things like that we rolled out an IVR on. I'm not sure we rolled it out to our entire base, but we rolled it out on a limited.
What does IVR stand for?
Interactive voice response system.
Oh, okay.
I would say computer, but it's a system that calls and gives information that tells them that the dealer name, the customer name, the signal received, and what to do about it if they want any more information. It's an automated call.
That goes to the dealer?
Goes to the customer.
Oh, the customer. Does dealer get a report to see their activity that they can audit?
Sure. There is a report function on Empower called accumulated alarm history. It's basically combined alarm history for all of your account base. It can be viewed online and downloaded. I believe in PDF and spreadsheet format.
Here's two questions addressed to me, and a great way to end this webinar. This question is for KK. Will be offering discount for this webinar attendees? No, Mr. Dealer, there's no discount today, but you should be getting your new contracts today, that's for sure. Probably be a discount in January, which we do every year, but I don't think you should wait.
Well, listen, we might be offering discounts for attendees. So, I mean, if you're interested in us, give us a call. So,
call David. He'll if he calls in with his credit card number, I'll know that that you're a big potential customer. How much are updated subscriber contracts? Well, they're online at alarmcontracts.com. You go to our website and David told me he was having trouble finding our webinars listed there, but you won't have any trouble finding our contract order page. That's featured prominently, and so are the webinars, by the way. There's a whole, when you go on our website, you'll see alarm. You see alarm, you click on that, and you'll get a drop, and alarm webinars are right there. And we spend a lot of time keeping them there. Okay. So how much are they? They're cheap. You know, like Mad Magazine used to say, cheap. Okay. Okay. Someone's telling me I must be hungry by now because it's after 1 o'clock. This is the last question. No more questions. Are all 6 of your central stations using your proprietary monitoring software?
They are. Yeah. We couldn't do it any other way. So all of the sites, essentially all dispatchers at all locations are logged into the same system. To be able to do.
All right, one more question snuck in. Does COPS participate in ASAP and PSAP? And if so, how many are you currently live with?
Okay, so
before you answer that, you probably should explain just briefly what that is, because I know what it is, but I don't know if everyone on here knows what it is.
So ASAP to PSAP is basically electronic communication with various PSAPs, public safety answering points, dispatch centers across the country. And the answer is we were an original charter member of ASAP to PSAP. We helped develop the standard, but we did not adopt ASAP to PSAP at the time, simply because we were having trouble having it adopted at PSAPs because there's no standard between PSAPs to be able to send signals to. So it really wouldn't have been significant. The areas that adopted this really wouldn't have been significant to move the needle on response time for us or any dealer. So we elected to just kind of sit back for a while. Just before COVID, we were finishing the final steps of rolling this out. We were going to have it rolled out by now. It's been set back a little bit. As a matter of fact, if you go to our website /bulletin, COPS monitoring /bulletin, there, all of our newsletters are there. You can read them online or download them. The very last bulletin talks about our preparation for ASAP to PSAP. Also talks about our J-base upgrade, our Meraki, our generators that can run 100 houses. It's all there. If you want to go take a look at our bulletins.
All right. And of course, that doesn't mean that cops can't monitor absolutely everywhere in this country, because it can, right? Okay. Except New York City Fire. We'll let them off the hook on that one. Okay, that's all the questions. I want to thank David for a great presentation. I want to thank all the folks at COPS for putting together a great central station. and assisting David with a great presentation. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. And David, you got one last word to say goodbye to everybody? Or call David. You got cops questions? Call David.
That's it. Send me an email. I'd be happy to help the best I can. And thank you again for putting these together. And I appreciate everybody spending their lunch with me. So thanks.
Okay. Take care, everybody, and thanks for coming. See you again. Bye-bye.